Welcome to Marketing Mondays, where in the first 30 seconds we talk about the top 3 headlines from the world of marketing, followed by the next 4 or 5 minutes, which is a detailed analysis into each of those headlines. And today we have Xiaomi and their zero marketing claim. Next, we have Vicks paying a beautiful tribute to Dr. Bhosle in a touching new ad. And last, we have the rise of video commerce and how Glowroads is helping with the same. Alright, now that we finished up with the headlines, let's take a deeper look into our first one, which is all about Xiaomi and their zero marketing claim. So, Manu Jain, the head of Xiaomi India, recently wrote a post on LinkedIn where he said that Xiaomi's differentiation was not their marketing costs, but rather their marketing innovation. The post went on to say how they had a zero marketing cost and yet reached the number one space in the smartphone market. Now, really, when we see products being displayed everywhere whenever we open Amazon or Flipkart or have their ads follow us around on YouTube and other social media, how is that zero marketing? And not to forget their star-studded ambassadors. Oh, and the launch of Mi 11 Lite, that was with a massive helium balloon hovering over the city. And those, my dear, are super expensive. Anyway, just last year they had spent about nearly 1,200 crore rupees in advertising alone. Sure, they may not have spent as much to become the title sponsor of IPL and the likes, but they sure were present throughout on TV ads as well. Needless to say, the post garnered a lot of attention and questions. Questions which we will try to ask and understand here. Okay, so Manu Jain's counter to all the people who are asking about, hey, we see your ads on your platform, was that they have now started spending on ads. And they didn't do that when they entered the Indian markets. And yet, they reached number 1 position by market share. Here is a graph that shows their growth from 2017 onwards. Impressive, right? So, what was their secret? Manu Jain, the ever-smiling India head, attributes it to their stellar team. But come on, there has to be a strategy, right? So their team, or at least the team when they had entered India, was extremely young. Most of them were under 30 and they were mostly tech forward, willing to adapt new technologies and the sort of people who like showing off their brand new gadgets without having to drill a hole into their pockets. And that was what helped. A fresh perspective not bound by the telecom industry or the mobile handset world. So when it comes to the 4 P's of marketing, they focused on the 2 that mattered the most to their target audience: product and price. They focused on product features like a great camera, software updates like facial recognition and filters, and on the pricing aspect, they decided not to take any more than 5%. And to push the prices further down, they set up their manufacturing here in India as well as their after-sale services. Now, how did they launch in an Indian market with zero budget? Well, the first launch that they decided to sell only a limited number of devices, 10,000 to be precise. And they exclusively partnered with Flipkart for the same. So, week before the actual launch, they opened up a waiting list registry. It was basically a beautiful page, for those of you who remember, which showed the product specs, the displays, the price point, and all of which was so alluring that the list got subscribed 500 times. For those of you who are a little weak in maths like I am, that translates to 5 lakh customers waiting for their shop to open so that they can get their hands on the device. And this was probably the closest India came to having a Black Friday-like reception, especially in the digital world. Back in 2014, the product sold out in seconds. Many people took to social media, some to boast about how they were able to order the phone, and others lamenting how despite being able to add it to cart, they couldn't check it out. And that was a huge viral marketing strategy that cost them nothing. Absolutely nothing. And it was like a self-fulfilling prophecy, because the next time they opened the wait list, they had scores of people who missed out on the first time signing up, as well as lakhs of their friends who had seen their posts on social media, creating a massive case of FOMO-led purchase decision amongst consumers. Well done, Manu and team. Alright, over to our next headline, which is a very touching ad by Vicks paying tribute to a COVID hero, Dr. Bhosle. If you haven't already seen it, I urge you to watch this very moving short film which they've released under their hashtag Touch of Care campaigns. What made me really appreciate the ad a lot more was that they had multiple opportunities of inserting Vicks into the ad in the background, product placement in ads. But they didn't. They ensured the entire focus was on the hero and his wife, who is narrating the story. And she will be taking up his mantle after his passing away. Traditionally, cause marketing or marketing for a social cause is an activity most corporates undertake as a part of their corporate social responsibility. But often it would be at best half-hearted attempt where they partner with an NGO or a global cause and use their brand to raise funds for it. But the focus somehow would always revolve around their brand. Like, for example, how many times has the cashier asked for a donation at the checkout counter? And more importantly, how many times has that appeal led you to taking action? I mean, cause marketing, in my opinion, always failed in one major marketing metric: getting the interest of people so that they take action. There's a slightly more effective way to cause marketing. That is when companies use or pay NGOs or causes for using their brands on their product and packaging. And every time a purchase of that SKU is made, a part of the price goes towards funding that cost. P&G has been one of the major proponents of this, and we've seen that when they tied up with Shiksha years ago. But there too, very little was done in terms of educating the customers about what was actually happening with the money that they collected. Sure, someone could dig it up from some CSR website if they were interested enough. And this is what I love about the Touch of Care campaign. The story, which is narrated through the eyes of Dr. Bhosle's loving wife, shows us his dedication to the health and welfare and making it accessible to the children in villages. He took risks during COVID to treat and save numerous children, and how he may have lost the battle to COVID, but he still lives on in his cause. A powerful message asking us to be a part of that mission. I loved it. Moving on is difficult, I know, but we must. And our next news item, which is about the rise of video commerce. Now, influencer marketing has been in the rise since a few years now, not just during COVID. Many people got introduced to brands and new brands thanks to influencers, myself included. And influencers too found a way to monetize their following, sometimes earning 7 figures and upwards. In fact, when we had the first set of lockdowns being imposed, we saw a wave of social commerce taking shape, with many micro and nano influencers finding their footing because people couldn't step out to shop, and yet they were somewhat skeptical of doing so online because who knows of the quality. And that's the beauty of the human mind. We tend to trust those in our circle, namely these micro and nano influencers, but it's not like the process was smooth or anything. If you liked a particular product, you had to go to the link provided by the influencer in either the description section of their YouTube video or on their bios and in Instagram. And it was easy to get lost amongst millions of other links present. That is why companies like GlowRoads fit in, and why they will be doing well in the future as well, in my opinion. Just imagine you're browsing through social media, following the live feeds of your favorite influencer. They're describing this product that you've just been waiting for, and you want to buy it right away. Now, you don't have to leave the live feed to buy the product, because GlowRoads API will provide a seamless bridge for you to make a purchase while browsing the video. Now, you may be wondering, this is social commerce, right? And this is where Meesho rules. Yes and no. Interestingly, in 2019, Meesho had dragged a number of their ex-employees who had joined GlowRoads to the court. They claimed that they had stolen proprietary information based on which GlowRoads business was operating. However, the CEO of Glowroads contested the same, calling it corporate bullying tactics. All that aside, how is Glowroad different from Meesho? Meesho provides a platform where resellers can display their wares, whereas Glowroad has taken the API route. They provide solutions which can be natively integrated into any social media platform of the seller's choice and enables their customers to complete a transaction and book an item. That, in my opinion, makes Glowroad a more powerful tool than Meesho. Why? Because social media platforms, while they are encouraging more commerce on their apps, do not like it when you post links that take people outside of their platform. Ask me, LinkedIn penalized me for sharing these video links. Anyway, Meesho is essentially yet another platform competing for user attention, whereas Glowroads is a complementary product that bolsters the social media platform's ability to enable commerce. Anyway, that's it for this week, and I hope you liked this edition. If you did, do give it a like, do share it with your friends who would be interested, and comment below if you think there was something missing in the video. And until then, see you next week. Bye bye.